Well, actually, it's to sort of put myself into context here with this wonderful group of people whom I've met a couple of you now, but I'd like to meet the rest of you. I don't have a cultural, I don't have a diplomatic background. I do have a father that was very much involved from 1949, 2 weeks after the airlift in Berlin until 1956. And I grew up there from age 6 to 12, so I was aware of what was going on in Berlin, and I think became very sensitive to the needs of people where they live. And my dad, of course, worked between the government and the needs of the churches and of various institutions in Eastern Germany to find a way of bridging understanding and so forth, at the same time working as a kind of double agent, picking up information debriefed then by the Western people in Berlin. So it was an interesting kind of background from which I came. I decided, to follow in my dad's footsteps, and I wanted to be a diplomat as well. I wanted to go into foreign service or teach, and but there were so many other things in my life that pulled at me, and one of them was baseball, and I became a very good baseball player. I had a contract with the Chicago White Sox to play, but I chose political science over baseball. How about that? And I went to Mexico and studied Mexico. And all the time, becoming more, I think, sensitized to, how shall I say this? The people who introduced me to show business were Mexican students who were involved in the revolutionary days of Mexico in the early 60s. And they were professional students because they felt they'd get more done in terms of cleaning out the corruption in the government and also of getting rid of the Yankee from the north out of their country because it's Mexico for Mexicans. And there was a lot of subsoil rights being held and so forth. And anyway, they went to the University of Mexico. There was a little cafe that I used to go to in Mexico City called the Toulouse-Lautrec. And on Thursday evenings, unbeknownst to me, they had a meeting. These guys would meet, these students, to strategize what their next move was going to be. And then afterwards, they would break out their guitars and they'd sing the music of Mexico. And I just was overwhelmed with that music. I just loved it. Eventually, my brother and I ended up going there like every Thursday night. And eventually, this table full of students went like this to me. Because we'd clap and we'd, yay, it was great, And they called us over to the table. And we started, after their meetings, we would go over and sit with them at their table and have a couple of beers and play the music. And one week, they brought me my first guitar. They gave me a guitar and taught me, from then on, they taught me the music of Mexico. Now, these were, quote, people who didn't like Yankees. Well, I'm an epitome of the blue-eyed, blonde-haired wasp from the north, and that wasn't the case at all. There was immediately a communication, not immediately, but it took time, it took time. But the communication and what resolved out of that was quite extraordinary. And it inspired me to change my direction. So I went into music. And I came back from Mexico with a whole pocket full of Mexican folk songs. And I needed a job very badly in the summertime because all the jobs were gone for young people. And I walked into this club called the 10 O'Clock Scholar. 10 O'Clock Scholar was a place that had just sent Bob Dylan off to New York just previously. And I auditioned with my Mexican folk songs. Malagueña, Salarosa, and Que bonitos ojos tienes, that kind of thing. And I got a job. So not only did these guys give me a guitar, but they also paid the way for me to move into quote, showbiz. Well, that's a long way of introducing one of the reasons that I feel so strongly about cultural diplomacy. Because it is very human. It's humanly based. It's a matter of gaining the trust and confidence about being open with others, not shoving things down people's throats, listening, which is really important, a persistence, consistency, and a genuine, genuine warmth, I think. And you put it in very human terms, toward each other. And I know it sounds a little bit simplistic, but I think that's basically what we're all about. And now I come to my project now, which is called Cuban Soul. I first read Ernest Hemingway when I was about 14, 15, something like that. And from the moment that I read Old Man and the Sea, this man became my literary hero. I just loved that book, and Cuba became my dream destination. I was going to go to Cuba, and then, of course, what happened? The embargo was put into place, and, of course, the Yanks were not allowed to go to Cuba. Still not, unless you're at an educational program of some sort. And that embargo has been in place for a long time. Anyway, I kind of gave up on the hope of going to Cuba until 2004, and I moved to the UK in 1995, and by 2004 I had UK citizenship. Ha ha ha! Try to keep me away from there now, pal. So I've got dual citizenship, so I'm both U.S. and UK, and so my first trip really with the UK passport was to Havana, actually to the southeast, to Santiago de Cuba, to Holguín, Baracoa, all the way to even Guantanamo, all the way, and all the way up the coast, and then into Havana. And of course, I paid a pilgrimage to the home of my literary hero, Ernest Hemingway. His home now, he lived there for 22 years, so there must have been something about Cuba that attracted him. Something very powerful. And I wanted to go to his home, and his home now is a museum. It's called the Hemingway Museum, of all things. And it's in San Francisco de Paula, just outside of Havana, about 15 acres. And I went there and was taking a tour of the house with the directors of the Finca Vigia, which is what it's called. And we went into the dining room, and on the wall, she described that there used to be a painting by Jean Miro called The Farm, which is a very famous painting, and it also was Hemingway's favorite painting. And it no longer existed on the wall. It wasn't there anymore. I said, well, why not? She said, well, when he died, Mary, his wife, Mary Welsh, gave it to the National Gallery in Washington, and of course, we've not been able to replace it because of the blockade. So I kind of put that in my pocket and came back to London, and I had an idea. I thought, well, shoot, I'll call the National Gallery and see what's going on. So I did, and talked to the photographic section and asked here's the deal, and I explained a little bit about what the situation was, and I said, listen, could I possibly get a hold of a slide of this? And he said, sure. Ooh, wow. How much is it going to cost? Gritting my teeth. $50. I said, that's no problem. Please send it. So I got it, gave it to my wife, who was in marketing, and she took it to one of her printers, and he had it put onto canvas. We rolled it up in a tube. I brought it down to the ambassador, from the Cuban ambassador, who was on his way back to Cuba, and he took it with the instructions to deliver it to the Finca Vigia, and they brought it back, and I walked in there next time I walked in, there it was on the wall in his place. So I realized then that I could get something done with my UK passport that I couldn't get done with a US passport. Isn't that something? Really. Then came out, my wife and I've been back now 10 times now. Anyway, after about 4 or 5 times, I had a meeting with a lovely Ada Rosa, who's a firebrand. Really, she's a passionate woman. And she said, I need to talk to you. We have a real problem. we have discovered Ernest's car, his 1955 Chrysler New Yorker Deluxe, which is convertible, which is really, I mean, that's something. Only 900 of those things made. And it was found in an old shed in the jungle. And it's a mess. It's a wreck. But what we want to do is we want to restore the car to its original state, its original condition, and we need to get a hold of parts to do that, because Cubans are brilliant when it comes to making car parts. That's what keeps these cars running for so long, you know. They're brilliant. They're wizards. Amazing. When you have to do something, they'll find a way to do it. It's called hay que resolver. It has to be done. It has to be resolved. Anyway, in this particular case, they didn't want it. They wanted original parts because they wanted it original because, you know, the car to be original. So then that means that they had to find some way of getting the parts into Cuba short of the embargo, around the embargo. So they said, would you help me? Would you help us? Now, I know nothing about restoration of cars. I absolutely nothing about it. I just drive them. I know nothing really about, well, I have no idea where to turn. Anyway, I said yes. Now, well, and so I got back to the UK and I wondered what to do, and I went through Google and I saw a magazine called Practical Classics. And I called them up and I told them what the story was and what the problem was, and I was going to restore this car. I wanted to help them restore this car. Not me, Cubans would do it. And they thought, what a great idea. So they went to one of their advertisers, Lancaster Insurance, who put up £8,000 to buy parts. Now, I'm going to get parts here in the UK. You're going to have to get them from the States. So where am I going to find this guy? Happens that the magazine, it happened that the magazine knew a chap by the name of Chris in Boston who handled Chrysler cars, Plymouth, Dodge, DeSoto, and Chrysler, and that he probably would be the #1 guy in the States to get a hold of the parts. If they were to be found, he would be the guy to do it. So we got in touch with him. He was over the moon. Hemingway is one of my favorites. I can't believe it. So right away, we're getting all these different elements of people who understand the political overtones of things, but are excited by the art of it, and excited by the mechanics, by the automobile, by the literary aspect of it, and by doing something together that's going to make a difference. Not a huge difference, and we aren't talking about major health problems, but we're talking about something that symbolically has a very kind of important place. So anyway, now he's off getting these parts together. And I let them know that we have found somebody. Please give us a list of parts that you need. So they went through. That list is changing all the time. Eventually, we pick up piece by piece by piece by piece these parts. Some of them small, some of them huge, big. And organize the shipping of them to the UK, and then they have to be shipped from the UK down to Havana. We were hoping to get something from, it was direct from like Miami to, but of course you can't do it. So you have to have a special license to do that. And there was one chap who, as of tomorrow, will be 1 year since the very first shipment by ship came out of Miami into Havana. That's 50-something years. There haven't been any shipment at all come in by boat. This was stupid, ridiculous. So anyway, we get these parts are now sending to UK, and we're going to ship them down to Cuba. Now I walk into Cuba or Havana into the museum full of myself. I've gotten all this stuff organized, and here we go. We're going to go down and pick up those parts out at the airport, no problem. We got it in like Flynn, you know? No way. It doesn't work that way in Cuba. Customs, it takes their time. They are very, very careful about what comes into the country. And don't even ask me why, or because I don't really know. I mean, there's lots of different reasons for that. I'm not going to go into that. And the other thing is that in order for one department to have the approval to say yes to you, they have to go through 5 or 6 different ministries before they can come back and say, yes, you've got it. Well, this is just the way things are there. It's not something that it's something I had to learn. Well, that's another lesson, isn't it? Something about listening and being patient. And that was a hard lesson to learn because I wanted to get it done now. You know, let's move with this thing, particularly because there was that Hemingway colloquium that was planned for just this past, the 20th to the 26th of June of this year. And we thought we could get those parts in by end of January, and the car could be essentially ready for the colloquium. Oh, no way, Jose. You know, it ain't going to work. You know, and we finally had to accept that. So anyway, that's the, and now we've finally gotten approval. We finally made an agreement, which is going to help us enormously, I think. We've got an agreement with it's called the Consejo Nacional de Patrimonio Cultural, which is basically looks after the the legacy of the country, art and so forth, you know, artistic endeavors, which is an arm of the Ministry of Culture. But not only the Ministry of Culture has to be involved in this, but the Ministry of Trade, the Ministry of Trade and Commerce, the Ministry of Tourism. All of these have to be in sync. And now finally we've got that agreement. So we can go ahead. We have now approval to get our visas, our work visas without a problem. We had more problems getting visas than I can tell you, just to get in there. Work visas. You can go down there, on a tourist visa, easy, but not a work visa. And then let's see what else. Oh, we have now help at customs. We just have to send them the proper lists ahead of time, and match up with the shipment sent when it's sent. We have support internally now, which is great because it would shortcut a lot of stuff. And in exchange, we will supply the parts and we will fix this car to its original state and then turn it over to the museum at no cost to them. So it's a fair exchange. It's a quid pro quo. It's a diplomatic settlement, in a sense. But at the same time, it's also a wonderful lesson for me. Because, I'm one of those guys that says, if we have all the parts together, all the pieces together and stuff, let's go. You know, impatient, let's move it. Come on. I got to learn. I had to learn a very hard lesson. And that is that, just relax, David, and listen to what they're saying. The way they do things is the way they do things. And this is a major, major problem. We have oftentimes trying to jam things down people's throats that is not part of their experience. It's one thing to stay consistent and persistent about something, and work toward a goal. But it doesn't mean that that you're sitting there and trying to push something down other people's throats. And I think it's a really valuable lesson. So that's where we are right now, folks. We have filmed, we've been there 3 times. We have put this, documented it. That's the other thing. I should say the parts were part of half the game. The other part of it was, or is, putting together a team to document this on film. And I have perhaps the best team I could put together. And there's only 4 of us, 5 of us now. And one of them is standing over there in the corner behind that camera. This is Adam Docker, and he is he's brilliant, just brilliant. So we've got him, and we've got a producer who is with us, Greg Atkins, and we have another producer, Adam's brother, Ches Terranova, and we have and then a film producer as well, because we want to try to take this film beyond where we are right now. I funded it so far. It's pretty expensive, but I funded it so far, but I just don't have, my pockets aren't deep enough to do that anymore, so we need some funds to finish this project. It's really a beautiful, beautiful project. And we're very excited about it for many reasons, not only just for the artistic satisfaction of finishing it, but also because I think it opens a door, a kind of door into building a bridge between the United States and Cuba. I think it can do that, and in a very in a righteous kind of way. You know, not it's really fascinating. We have a film clip here, a film, well, not clip, but it's a video promo, which gives you a little bit of an idea of what this thing is about.
Bueno, gentiles amigos.
It was a fast, powerful, racy, macho car for a powerful, macho, racy guy.
This is a legendary car because there are all these myths around what happened to it after Hemingway left.
This car is here.
A 1955 Chrysler New Yorker Deluxe convertible has just come into our hands after being missing for all these years. David, can you help us get the parts to restore the car? That's it, the original motor?
Yes.
But there's nothing in there.
No.
It's a mess. It's a wreck.
Este es el original.
All I can do is imagine what must have gone on in that back seat.
I call the mechanics here mechanical wizards.
These guys are going to put that car back together in its original state. But they need to have the parts.
U.S. embargo prohibits U.S. car parts or any U.S. product to be sent to Cuba.
Hemingway fue uno de los escritores más ilustres de Estados Unidos. ¿Por qué no ayudarnos? ¿Por qué no darnos las manos?
Lo vamos a ganar la tarde.
I don't know that David truly has understood the enormity of the task that he has taken on.
I'm going to have to use a little ingenuity myself. I'm sure there's a way. Let's go get these parts. So you have access to, or you can source all the parts we need.
55 New Yorker Deluxe convertible, restored, depending on the condition, 70,000 plus. Hemingway's, priceless.
Oh my God.
Right. This is the original color book. It's sitting in there since 1955. Kind of like opening up a bottle of old wine. I've worked on basket case projects before, but never in a place that I can't legally ship parts to. I hope I'm not going to get in trouble by trying to do something which I don't know how you could consider to be anything other than good.
He's gone into the void. Disappeared.
Getting things done in Cuba is always 3 steps forward, you get enthused, 2 steps back.
Listen, the parts are still in customs.
I've seen so many foreigners come in, think they could get something going, and they stumble upon the bureaucracy.
We probably bent some people out of shape, you know, we're pretty not aggressive.
Well, you didn't bend anybody out of
Well,
shape. I
you know.
did. Now I see what I've gotten myself into. First you want to scream at somebody, and then you know that's not going to work.
She said she's gonna call back in 5.
It's just not worth it. They have an expression here, say, hay que resolver, which means it has to be done. So no matter what the condition of something is, we've got to make it work. Out of that has grown the spirit, humor, art, music.
There you go. Listen to me.
The restoration of Hemingway's car is as a metaphor for Cuban life, for its ingenuity, its drive, its persistence, its passion, its pride. Cuban Soul. We come in with a certain kind of attitude that we developed in, in the States or in Europe, where it's like, slam, bam, we'll get it done, do it. It doesn't work like that here. It just doesn't. I don't know that I'm totally used to it yet, but I learned, that's for sure. And I've been humbled somewhat by that process. So you may have seen this already. It's it's online. You can see it online again if you want. Under Cuban Soul or under Red Earth Studio. So that's what we're using basically to generate initial interest in the project. We now have an assembly, well over 40 minutes. We have amazing amount of film footage already, but we haven't finished. When the car is finished, the film will finish. That's the idea. In the meantime, you have to learn about the country. So that's what this thing is about. So any questions? Any points? Yes?
Would you be in trouble if they found out you also had an American passport? Do you just sort of not tell them?
What about it?
Well, like in Cuba, as you're going through customs.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter that you have both.
No, I don't show both. I just the one.
Yeah. Because I have the same situation.
Yeah.
I've been debating Cuba.
It's funny, I had probably back in last time. Where did I go? I went to the States for a while, and on my American my U.S. passport. And I came back in here, and I didn't think to bring my U.K. passport. And of course, because I didn't bring my U.K. passport, they said, "What are you doing here? You can't go in." I mean, what are you visiting? I've been here 18 years now. He says, "Well, you got to come in with your British passport." I mean, the world has gone nuts. Except I understand it to some degree, but I mean, really. And you know, a lot of it too that I've really, what you're saying about the Cuban people and the spirit and the life and with very little, they still have a way of bringing there's a lot of joy, a lot of joy, and unfortunately, when we grow up, the period that I grew up in the Cold War, and it's still the case now, Cuba is painted with the propaganda of the government. And unfortunately, cultural diplomacy has to fight against propaganda. To me, it's not really our concern. What is important is to break down those walls, of the propaganda. It's ingrained in Americans' head. Commies down there, that Fidel Castro guy. That guy, I mean, come on. Bunch of commies down there. Oh, God, I hate this. Oh. You know what I mean? It's like... Anyway, that's one of the things that I hope that this film can do a little bit towards, addressing anyway. It's not going to change anything, but... Yeah. Yeah.
So you're hoping it's going to build a cultural bridge from the American point of view to understanding what Cuba's about today?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
Yeah, talking about cars, I'm a fan of a car.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I own a 69 Ford Mustang. Yeah, but he has been started for over 30 years in Sierra Leone. Yeah. So if I want to fix it, how can I go about it? You're talking about the guy, Francis or something in Boston.
Yeah, he does all the Chrysler cars.
Ford.
Yeah, Ford. Suddenly I'm an expert. Yeah. 6 months ago, I didn't know anything about it. Now I'm an expert.
Right.
Where's your car?
I parked in Freetown. Over 30 years, parked in the garage.
Really?
It's a big problem, So I said, I keep on thinking about it.
It doesn't belong to Hemingway.
Over 30 years,
You can see he's going to become a magnet for the world's conference.
So you can go back again about it,
Yeah.
It's a compatible.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you. Let's see. Maybe I could. I mean, there's no restrictions there, is there?
No.
Okay, all right. Don't sucker me into this one, okay? I'm not going to do it. I know. I'm going to the car business now. No, it's well. You know, you didn't give me your card, did you?
No. Okay. I'll give you my email.
Yeah, do that and give me that, and I'll call the guy at Practical Classics to see where that might be. It's probably easier to get the parts here for Ford than it would be than for the Chrysler, certainly.
Okay.
You know, but I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Yeah, and don't. That's it, guys. No more. Yes, please.
David, so really, yesterday I was talking about you with a friend of mine. She's a friend of you, and I know that definitely today I would have the opportunity to meet you. With what my colleague here said, I want to understand really your interest with cars really in Cuba. It's like a movement to reconnect America and Cuba. But that's the main idea.
Absolutely. It's important that rebuilding the car is a metaphor for rebuilding Cuba and rebuilding relations.
Yes, the foundry.
Yeah, because I think Cubans are what? For those of you, I'm happy that you've been to Cuba. And if you leave, there's a very good friend of mine, my Norman David Hoyo. Maybe you probably have heard his name. But David Hoyo, he's a Cuban celebrity artist.
No, I don't
know. Belong to that field. And I think that the people of Cuba teach the whole world a certain lesson of how they can live with all of the challenges that go on in Cuba, how they can enjoy life. I was just sharing with my colleague that I love doing salsa in whole Havana, you know, when the soul, the life, you feel differently regardless of who you are, what political affiliation you are. The music actually connects everybody together, you know, and so it's a lovely place. I wish you all the best with everything.
Thank you very much.
I'm with my colleague. I have a 1975 Opel Cadet. I can help you.
So tell me you've got a car.
Right.
You don't have to worry, David.
Yes, my dear.
Hi, I just wanted to find out from you because, like my colleague said, this is a movement, you know, it's about building bridges. Have you dealt with a lot of Cuban Americans, and have you felt or experienced any resistance towards the project? And if not, do you?
Not yet, but we are going to. We feel that that's a really important part of telling this story. You have to kind of look at it from lots of different points of view. We are going to take this story. We're waiting for more funding, so I want to take it to Washington as well, and challenge the Department of Treasury and you know, OFAC there, with the Office of the Fiscal Assets, or what are they called, who sort of enforce all these heavy-duty laws. So, but we want to find, you know, we want to do a lot of, we want to bring in some of those elements as well, because we think it's important.
I was wondering as well, do you have trader days in the United States? I want to know, do you have trader days in the United States? Trader days, the very famous franchise of restaurant Trader Days, which is here in London, in Bahrain.
Which, I didn't get
It's
the
a
name.
Cuban restaurant. It's in the Hilton here.
Oh, no.
You don't have it in the United States, okay. I'm trying to find out if you have the Trader Days, because it's in every country.
Trader Vic's?
Trader Days.
Oh, I know Trader Vic's from years and years and years and years.
But you have it
But it's Polynesian.
It is originally Cuban.
Was it really?
Yes, but to open, that's what I want.
I used to go to Trader Vic's in Los Angeles back in the 70s.
Yes, it was changed just for the purpose of opening 2 branches. You have to go and read the history of Trader Vic's.
Okay, all right.
I wanted to see, so
Okay.
you know that.
Thank you. I'll do that. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Peter. On a more serious note, I've been pretty much asking this question to every American I meet nowadays. What is your opinion on the Snowden case that has just developed?
Well, I don't know. You know, I don't know how much damage he really did. I have no idea what. I think it gets blown out of proportion, in my opinion. I don't know enough to really have an opinion about it or comment about it, except to say that I think they're overreacting to it. I think as a citizen of the U.S. and certainly a citizen of the U.K. and the quote freedoms that we're supposed to have.
It's just because it's
we should. I mean, that they keep this kind of stuff from citizens. It's not just that; it's a lot of other things too that we're not party to.
It's just because what my question is more focused about is how do you feel as an American about the policies about keeping so much personal information for just normal citizens? You see what I mean?
Politics.
I don't want to really delve into that because I don't want to sound like I'm an idiot. You know, it's not. I just feel too much is held back from us. We have a right to know a lot more than we know. You know, I remember one press conference that Ronald Reagan gave, and he was questioned about why he chose to do a certain thing. And I just remember this. He said, "If you knew what I know, you would understand why I'm doing what I'm doing."
Yeah.
Well, you know, come on. And that's the one, probably the only thing I remember from one of his press conferences.
Final question, I think, right? We're running out of time. They do that with the parliament.
Arms to Syria, okay. Don't ask me about that.
I'm getting far from Korea.
Yes, hi.
Hi, and I want to ask you about language differences because we have talked about language differences a lot, and even English has a difference, like Indian English and American English and British English. And if you are in Cuba, have you ever felt about barriers of language? Because as an artist, you know, art can be a tool of communication, but like if you have ever overcome that barriers, like language barrier of language.
Yeah, that original story, that early story I told you about the students in Mexico.
Oh.
When I first went, I didn't speak Spanish.
At all?
No. I mean, I had a book. I had learned Spanish, you know, kind of. But it didn't matter because the music was what I loved, and you know, the expression. Yeah. And I learned it eventually. Not great. But I learned it enough, so I just haven't practiced it for a long time. Yeah, but I think you're right. I think that it's essential that you spend some time learning language. I think that's really important. You know, I want to communicate, and you know, and Cubans are known for they talk almost as fast as Mark Donfrey.
Two more questions actually, and then we have to conclude. I'm not sure who was first.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, my name is Karen, I'm from Germany, and I want to ask if since your childhood you've been back to Berlin, and what you think,
what?
if since your childhood you've been back to Berlin, and what you think of Germany's transformation?
I've been back to Berlin, yes. I love it.
yeah, and what do you think of the transformation since they were?
Well, how can you think of anything but positive? I mean, I'll tell you that my memories are very, very strong still about my youth. It was a very exciting time in Berlin. 49, 50, 51, 52, 53. Very exciting because everybody had to stick together. It was an island, wasn't it? It was an island. And there was only one way in and one way out, except by plane.
But I come from the other side.
You come from the eastern side? Yeah? No.
That's a different perspective.
When I first went there, and shortly after the wall came down, I guess 6 months, asked a taxi driver to take me to the east. Of course, he didn't know where to go, you know, because he could never go into the east before. And so a lot of taxi drivers got lost in the east. Funny. Yeah, I love it. I love Germany. I really do. Yeah. Yes, sir, ma'am.
Mr. Soul, thank you very much for your presentation. And it's not a question, it's just a comment. As we talked during this conference, we talked about passports, visas, various problems. We talk about different approach. In Italy, it's piano. Here in UK, it has to be done at any case. But all this, we had very sad story from Bahrain. But now it's such a joy to have such a beautiful project on the move, and like you are a representation of this cultural diplomacy, in action. And usually, as I'm dealing in international projects for 20 years, and sometimes I'm describing the project, I say, oh, such a beautiful project. And it's such a pleasure to meet the person who has such a project. It's a beautiful project, and as yesterday we also had something about Cold War and the way Louis Armstrong with the music destroying, not trying, I don't think he really cared what he was doing, but really he was destroying this misunderstanding between the nations, and I think you're doing the same with the cars. And what about Jeremy Clarkson? Jeremy Clarkson, who is I read his book about Cuban cars, marvelous cars, but with ex-Soviet engines. So
ex-Russian engines.
Oh yeah. Well, that's true.
He was amazed that in Cuba all these like beautiful cars, which are rarity here and which are kept in garage for special occasion, but in Cuba they are everywhere, and with not Russian, Soviet engines, ex-Soviet engines.
I think that's what's important. What I think you can is the fact that David was very adamant on making sure that the Cubans rebuilt this car, because it was because Chrysler came in at the very beginning and wanted to take the car to the United States and build it and rebuild it in a super duper air-conditioned hangar where everyone dresses in super suits and everything like that. But it was, David going, no, it's imperative that the Cubans built this because he loved this country. Hemingway loved this place, and the Cubans know what to do with this car. They know these cars because they've been repairing these cars for the last few years. But and that was key to that.
That's very true.
I think what I'd like to say something about the Cubans, if you
Please.
don't mind, is that because they haven't been exposed to what we all have, and the rest of the world is that, including, I've filmed in Africa and South America, in Asia, everywhere. And what you find in Cuba is a certain innocence. When you're filming them, it's incredible how it's almost like you don't exist, and you're sticking a camera in their face, and where you're expecting, like, let's say when you're in Mali, the first thing they do is, they find it really offensive because it's taking something away from them or it's disrespectful. But like in Cuba, it's just, I don't know, it just felt so natural, and they acted just naturally. It was like, you're doing what you're doing, I'm doing what I'm doing. But it was so beautiful, and it was such a pleasure to film them, because they are so charismatic, and despite what they're going through, they are so full of life, and they appreciate their life, and they have nothing. They live on $18 a month, and they just get by, and they scrimp and this, and try and sell you this under the whatever, and they'll be to lubricate an engine, they'll invent some kind of shampoo and they'll mix it with another bit of oil, and they've got lubricants. And they'll make do, as in Resolver. If that doesn't work, you know, I was missing a screw or my light was broken. Next minute there's a mechanic behind me. Hey, I fixed it. It's like, what? I had to pay £20 to get that fixed in London. And here's this guy just out of the hat.
Yeah, and we had one guy who described as making car making as a kind of sandwich.
Yeah.
You know, you had what is it? Motor from England. You had a drivetrain from
the German, Russian Jeep.
Yeah, Russian Jeep. You had I don't know.
The transmission from something else, and it's all bolted on. And but you know, we went to mechanics who were building parts in their houses, but just the precision and artistry. And I think what it is as well is it's they'll use everything. It's about recycling. It's they don't throw things away, and it's about it makes you think about what we have over here, which is, you know, I'm fed up with this now, I'm going to throw it away. But it's about the respect of what we have. We don't have anything, so we keep everything just in case we need it. And that's truly amazing.
Well said.